I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Boys and girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something strange?
Why isn't anyone singing?
Oh, is that what we're supposed to be doing?
Town of Halloween. Have you ever gone to the sing-along to this? They do a
That's right.
sing-along.
Marissa, put up the words on the bottom.
Yeah, the little bouncing ball. Actually, I went to at Disney. They actually had like a Rocky Horror kind of thing. They supplied you with stuff. It was at Disneyland actually when they used to have that Southside movie theater, and it was a ton of fun. Yeah.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. If you couldn't tell, we're doing Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. How crazy is that?
Happy holidays, everyone.
Oh, yeah, holiday season.
But it's not Halloween. For us, it's almost Christmas time.
Almost.
We'll definitely debate, is this a Halloween movie? Is this a Christmas movie? We'll talk about the inception. We'll talk about everything in between. I am your host, Phil Svitek, joined alongside
Sarah Stratton.
Dimitri Panos, hello.
And in the booth, we have
Marissa Serafini.
who
What's up,
ironically,
guys?
Hello.
Ironically, Marissa loves her musicals.
I do.
And she loves kind of fairy tales and things like that. So you would think this movie would be right up her alley. Ironically, out of all of us, she is the least knowledgeable with this movie.
Okay.
Yes, that is true.
Marissa, I want to hear your opinion on this, but I also want to know, like, do you like movies like Edward Scissorhands and, I
love
all of
Edward
those?
Scissorhands, which is another great film made by Tim Burton. But the thing with this movie is that every time I watch this, it's kind of like background noise. I never really fully devoted my full attention to it. I haven't, like Phil said before the show, I haven't really watched it for pure enjoyment.
So you use the movie as a soundtrack, basically.
Kind of. I mean, I know a lot of the songs because I hear it, but just watching it, I have to like really sit down and pay attention.
Well, luckily, the three of us have sat down and paid multiple attentions to it.
being that we've watched it multiple times.
Yes.
That's
where I'm going with this. Let's start with this. Obviously we'll get into the dissection part of it, but what about it do you guys love? Because I know you guys love this movie.
I'll defer to
so
ladies first.
I was like thinking about this movie and I was trying to figure it out, and I rewatched it again with my roommate the other day. And there's honestly so much about it that I love. I respect it because I know how much effort a film like this takes. Like the patience and the dedication and just like the love, the art that you have to have is like awe-inspiring. Because I know, as much as I would say like, oh, I think I'm a creative person, I like art projects and crafts and filmmaking, I could never spend the time doing this. It would drive me insane. Just like the effort they put into like each moment. But it shows, and there's such an interesting style and like elegance and beauty to this film that I do like it really artistically, like just visually. And then I was raised around musicals and I really do like the music, maybe because it does give you that little different twist. It's spooky, it's eerie, it's not your typical happy-go-lucky musical. And so just that they combined so many things and did it really well, I'm really happy with the whole thing on both sides.
Yeah, I was sucked into this movie, just prior to its release. I was in Boston, and I was fortunate enough I got invited to a screening of it, which I saw it at the Chestnut Hill General Cinema.
I know that one.
And yeah, I saw it there, and just totally taken with the craft, with the movie, with it being a musical. Fan of Tim Burton. That nuance is through and through. It wasn't a typical, Christmas kind of a story or a Halloween kind of a story, but it had great characters. And I just remember coming out of the screening going, wow, I just saw something that I haven't seen. And this is really great. And it was a great homage. I love the Ray Harryhausen movies that use stop motion and the original King Kong and how it worked. Again, you know, this set off a renaissance for this type of an animation. And being that it was released by Disney under their, I believe, their Touchstone banner, it wasn't a big surprise that Disney would do this. And knowing that Tim Burton was an animator and had his sensibilities to it, it was just a fun movie. And coming out, I was like, wow, this is great. I bought the soundtrack when that was released way back then. And, you know, ever since I've been a fan. And I've been fortunate living out here now in Los Angeles that since 2001 at Disneyland, they've done this great overlay in the Haunted Mansion, usually a week prior to Halloween, and it stays through the holidays. So
and sometimes they even bump it up all the way to September. Like they start at the beginning of October now.
Yeah, and it's just great, and it's just as a fan, you know, like I've loved it. And this actually comes from 2002.
Dimitri's pointing to his sweater. That is,
sweater,
if you're listening.
Christmas. And yeah, it's just really good stuff. Yeah, and again, it was something that I hadn't seen before. The music was catchy. Driving home that night in Boston, just going, yeah, it's a timeless movie, I think.
Typically, we talk about the legacy of a movie at the end, but with this, what I like about it, you know, in schools, we used to kind of watch it. They used to show it on Halloween, and you know, it used to be like the favorite thing to get out of not having to do work. It's like, hey, put on Nightmare Before Christmas, and kids would enjoy it. So I'm surprised, Marissa, you haven't seen it. You know.
Did they really?
Well, I've seen it as a kid, you know, but watching it as a kid, you're not going to really remember all the details as you would when you're a grown-up.
Fair enough. There's so many details in this movie to remember. But but I like that aspect of it where they've, you know, there's one thing to see a movie and it's an enjoyable experience, and obviously we love personally doing it, but when you do it for when you know the movie and you purely love the movie, I love that aspect of it. And you know, one of the things we should talk about is how they, you know, they have select theaters screen this and things like that, and so it becomes, I love the spectacle idea of it to what it's become, rather than just like, oh, here's another movie that we got to see.
Well, you know, I think bringing that up and how it played at theaters, the movie opened up the weekend of October 15th in 1993, and it opened in 2 theaters. Now, I don't know back then exactly what 2 theaters it opened at, but that's sort of kind of interesting when you look at, you know, this is basically for lack of a better word, it is an animated movie, you know, regardless of it being stop motion animation. And Disney decided to go, it was essentially a platform release. So they had it in 2 theaters on the weekend of October 15th. I believe the following weekend it may have opened up in a more handful of theaters, but it wasn't until October 29th, that was Halloween weekend, that they actually went about 1,600 locations. And it's really interesting because when it opened up on the 15th, it opened up to like around the 20. It opened up at like number 20, which isn't bad for something that's on 2 screens. When it had its wide release, it opened up to number 1 that weekend. And I don't know, I just find, again, if you listened or watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I talk about the differences and trends in the way movies are distributed and how big they get. So just to give you an idea what else opened up on the 15th, we had Demolition Man, which was its second week, which was number 1. We had the Beverly Hillbillies were out. Cool Runnings was out. Malice, a Universal movie, and I was at Universal at the time, called Judgment Night, had opened up. Not too well. But in any case, you know, you just look at, and these movies now were opening up 2,000, 1,000, 1,800. They were eking up. So if you remember from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, how I talked about most movies didn't open up that much more than 1,000. Now we're getting into the releases of being 2,000 and larger. So then when you look at October 29th, when it reached number 1, it grossed $8 million on those 1,654 screens. The Beverly Hillbillies was still number 2. And Demolition Man, Cool Runnings, Rudy was in its 3rd week, which I love Rudy. If we ever do a sports special, Rudy will have to do at some point. So, you know, you look at the releases and how they came out, and then when you look at 1993 as a year, again, when we talked 87, there were only 4 movies that made over $100 million, I believe. Now you had the number 1 movie in 1993. Can anybody guess what that might have been?
I can just because I'm looking at your
Because you're looking at my sheets. It doesn't happen.
Fine.
1993.
Well, I know it wasn't Unforgiven like the best movie in that year. Not, I don't know.
It was Jurassic Park.
Okay, yeah.
Jurassic Park.
That makes sense.
And I was at Universal. That was a great, I mean, to be working at Universal at that time was awesome. That movie did $357 million that year. And when you compare a Jurassic Park into what it did for cinema, it changed the landscape of special effects and for grosses at the time. Now you're looking at movies like Hunger Games, which we just did last week, and that movie's making $300 million, you know, within 2 weeks. Yeah, it's crazy. And then Mrs. Doubtfire was number 2 with $219 million. The third movie was The Fugitive. That was the 3rd highest grossing movie of 1993. That did 183. Then we had The Firm, Tom Cruise, The Firm, and that was 158 million. And we'll round off. We'll stop at 5. Sleepless in Seattle did 126. So, you know, a little time capsule as to, you know, how things. You can see the shift. You can see how things are changing within the world of distribution. And our movie, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, came in at number 27. And at the time, it did $50 million, which for that movie, not too shabby. But now you throw it into current day, as you talk about. The movie has had various re-releases. And Disney has made a great way of marketing and introducing it into theaters for like the week before Halloween and doing all these things. Currently, the movie has done about $75 million all in total. So that's an additional $25 million, if my math is correct, you know, that it's done through its various re-releases where they didn't really open at much more than 1,000 theaters. I think it was maybe 500 or so. So that movie continues at the box office to still bring cash in. People still go to this movie when it's released in a theater near them. That's amazing. That is a great legacy. There aren't that many movies that I think could do that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to talk about or bring attention to is who does get kind of like the credit and the recognition for this film. Because we always are referring to it as Tim Burton's
But it's
The
not.
Nightmare Before Christmas. And although I love Tim Burton, I think that if he wasn't part of this project, it wouldn't have gotten made. Because I think just his weight and his popularity allowed him to make choices that the studio wouldn't otherwise have given into. But I think that more credit should be given, especially to like the director, Henry Selick. Because out of the actual production of this film, when they were up in San Francisco for 3 years, Tim Burton was only there for about 10 days. So he came up with the idea. This is based off his poem. He definitely was there for a lot of the music conception, a lot of the artwork. But I do wish that people would give more recognition to the people who were there day after day making this dream into kind of a reality.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Henry Selick gets his due. I mean, this movie for Henry Selick, in any case, like that, it was really put him into the line. He was able to do more of these types of movies as he went on. And I don't know. I mean, I don't discredit Henry Selick at all, but to me, this is a Tim Burton vision, like through and through. I mean, it has the Tim, you know, regardless as to how it was directed. I mean, Tim Burton's signature is all throughout the entire movie.
But that was also a thing that they were kind of told to do, was like make sure this looks like a Tim Burton film, not because of Tim Burton actually being there and saying it himself, but because of like a more studio presence, that's what they wanted.
Yeah, and Henry Selick did say that it did bother him for a while that Tim Burton's name was above the masthead instead of his, but he said down the long run, for a marketing decision, it was probably a better choice because Tim Burton already had a big following and he would get the audience in the seats.
True.
Well, it's a lesson to any filmmakers out there, in the sense of there's actors in particular that I know that would want to be the lead in a, for lack of a better term, shit movie that no one sees versus, you know, a major release and be like the 4th or 5th star. You know, you're going to get, even though you're the 4th or 5th star, obviously you're going to get much more recognition if you're in that movie versus the lead in a movie no one's seen.
Right.
So, for all intents and purposes, in that respect, it's a smart decision.
I think it's a smart decision. You're right on the studio, especially because at the time he was doing like Batman and Batman Returns and all these huge movies and Beetlejuice, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I mean, he had made... He had the clout for it.
Yeah, well, he had the clout, but again, when you... the way I look at it, too, it is... Without Tim Burton, this wouldn't have happened. And had it been even in a different form, like just say this was Henry Selick's, like it wouldn't have been this.
It wouldn't have gotten the push.
Well, no, it just wouldn't have looked the same. It wouldn't have part of the genius of Tim Burton too is that he did these were based off of his characters, his drawings, he created Jack and Sally, and he did all this. And I'm just saying, I'm not taking away from Henry Selick at all. I just think that this is a Tim Burton movie. I look at Henry Selick being the director, and this is the kind of thing even in watching a making of on that Blu-ray, this is the kind of thing he wanted to do. He was given another movie to do, and he's like, nope, I get to work with Tim Burton. I'm going to work on this. And, this was his dream to do this. And because of that, he was able to do like a Coraline. He was able to do a Jack and the Giant.
I'm just saying that stuff. I wish that his name was kind of featured up there alongside Tim Burton's, at least now even. Just because to me, I look at it almost like an invention. It's like someone can come up with the idea and talk about how they had this great idea, and then someone else does it and they get the credit. And this was Tim Burton's idea and Tim Burton's baby, and he obviously put in so much creativity that I do think he deserves recognition. But I think the people who made it happen and spent the day after day working on it should kind of also be acknowledged just as much.
I think they do. I honestly think that they get, as the years have gone on with this movie, I think that Henry Selick has definitely gotten the recognition as paving the way and giving a renaissance to this. I don't think, had it not been for A Nightmare Before Christmas, there's a renaissance of this stop motion special effects work. And actually, even when you look at it, a movie like Jurassic Park and Phil Tippett Studios, they were using these sort of kind of techniques. So I don't know. I don't think Henry Selick's name isn't above the title, but that's not due to Henry Selick's fault. That was probably in the contract that Tim Burton gets his name above the title. So on this one, and even on my sweatshirt, even at Disney, it's one of the only things that's really non-Disney. Like it's Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas Haunted Mansion. I think that was just smartly written in his contract, and Tim Burton gets a lot of the proceeds because it was his poem, it was his idea. But I don't think people dismiss Henry Selick and all the work that's done. The work that's done on it is fabulous.
And the poem that Dimitri mentioned, which I'm sure most of you know, but this whole thing was based off, I believe it's 3 pages long, I want to say. A 3-page rhyming poem that Tim Burton wrote while he was an animator at Disney. And you can find it online. It's also, as you said, in one of the special edition DVD sets. But
narrated by Christopher Lee, by the way. Was that in that DVD? Did they even have that?
I
have it. But
I'm upset because I always get the special editions of things because I like to see the behind the scenes.
Me too.
And I was duped into buying a special edition DVD. And so just if you're looking for it, do yourself a favor. Get the Blu-ray apparently because it has a lot. Mine had like pictures and
it's also
nothing else.
On the internet. If you want to see the narrative version of the poem, you can't find it on the internet. I don't know.
Was it the Blu-ray that had the
bought the DVD set that Phil bought?
Well, was it the DVD that had like Jack Skellington on it, and it was sort
anymore.
of you don't know anymore.
Know.
Well, I've had so many incarnations of this movie. We were talking before. I bought back in the day when Laserdiscs were popular. I bought the very deluxe edition box set, CAV version, which at the time CAV for Laserdisc was the highest quality. It was a frame by frame. You got the best quality that you could see the movie in, and Laserdiscs at the time, it was the only place to get commentary. It was the only place to get deleted scenes and making of featurettes and things like that. And I spent $75, and I only know that because I saved the receipt, and I know that because I pulled that box set. It traveled with me out here to California, And yeah, I mean, I've had so many versions of this movie, whether it be on DVD and then Blu-ray. The only version I don't have yet is the 3D version.
Do you have the VHS? I have the VHS.
I had a VHS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, but you know, speaking of that, I think what partly makes this movie so special and why we're doing what we're doing, because there's not, especially in that this is just right around the time when behind the scenes featurettes are becoming kind of popular, and so for all intents and purposes, there's not a lot on it versus, like, if you look at Coraline, right, another kind of this type of movie, there's so much behind the scenes of how they made it and this and that, and I love that. But this movie really doesn't have all that too much, and that's partly why we're discussing it today, is to kind of get it out there. But it was missing at the time. Yeah, no,
well, unless you had the Laserdisc.
If you had the Laserdisc version, it was just coming into like this being of what behind the scenes featurettes were.
Yeah.
Because of, home cameras and things like that.
Sure. Yeah, no, and they weren't doing, well, they were. I mean, 93, I remember them doing a ton for Jurassic Park, and there were a ton of books written about it. Yeah, I mean, that had a lot. But I do remember, again, for Nightmare Before Christmas, again, you have to remember the time in which it came out. The release of home video was completely different than what it was today, and sometimes you would have to wait onwards and upwards to a year after a movie was released for it to come out in home video. And in some cases, or at least in the early days of home video, it wouldn't go to sell-through, and sell-through meaning it was at an affordable price for the consumer to buy. But when a VHS had first come out, it would be $75 to $100 because it would basically go to your Blockbusters for rent. So they would buy the VHS to rent off, and then maybe a year after that there would be a price drop. I think the first movie, some trivia here, the first movie to go sell through, the person who broke that barrier was Steven Spielberg, and I believe it was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was the first movie to come out on VHS to be sold at a sell-through price, meaning it came out for like $15, $19 and the consumer could buy it. And that sort of kind of changed the window. But when you had VHS only, there was no place to put a special feature. Yeah. It was just movie. They didn't even put trailers on those things. So for me, a movie fan, for getting the Laserdisc, and I could freeze frame, and I can go frame by frame. I was that much of a geek, and I still am today. It was awesome. It was great. And seeing those featurettes, it was the only avenue which I could see the making of a movie, which was really, really cool. And in fact, Laserdisc is sort of making a comeback. If you are in the internets and you're watching various websites, they're releasing old Laserdisc special features of, like, say, Empire Strikes Back. And again, they're going back to the Laserdisc versions of, like, different takes and scenes. So it's really funny how we're looking back at sort of things, and I can do the same thing with Nightmare Before Christmas.
All right, so let's dive into Nightmare Before Christmas fully. The story, the writing,
everything, all the.
Let's talk about so in terms of, so it's a 3-page poem. So let's talk about the development into the script and things like that, and it coming into being.
Okay, so we got this 3-page poem. I don't know if you've read it. I've read it. Val, have you read the poem?
I have not had the Blu-ray.
You know what? I'll let you borrow mine.
Okay, so basically in this poem, we get a lot of the story based on Jack. And we get kind of Jack's adventure and his depression and the fact that he gets awed by Christmas and then tries to take it over. What the poem doesn't have that the film adds, the boogeyman. The boogeyman's a completely added thing into the film. Sally, and pretty much all of your minor characters, except for Zero. Zero does make it into the poem as well. And I think that's why originally, after the poem, they conceptualized this as either, I believe it was a 30-minute short or something a little bit smaller. So to make it last for that full film length, they added all the music, obviously, and they added these bigger plot shifts. I mean, you've got another villain, you've got Sally, the love interest, and also all the characters they put in this film. And one of the things I really liked is they all have, like, dimension and layers. Like, Santa Claus is a very recognizable figure, but they added a different twist to him. To make him not just this happy-go-lucky all-the-time guy. And they did that to counteract Jack and how he, although he's a skeleton, also has all these dimensional layers. Boogeyman's kind of one-dimensional in a way.
Yeah, well, I think the stop motion, I think that's another, you bring up a good point about this dimension. Up to that point, again, too, in animation, this type of this stop motion allowed an audience to see different dimensions and characters and settings. We saw settings that, you know, really we hadn't seen before, and the way that they translated to on screen. And again, I have to go back. I mean, when you look at all of these characters, they're very Tim Burton characters. Even Santa Claus, he's not your typical Santa Claus. You know, you know, he's really rotund. He's got the little feet. Yeah. And you know, to your point, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of dimensions when you watch this, but I think we get them because of the detail and the love that's the other thing about this movie, is that you can really see the love and passion for this type of filmmaking. Like, yeah, we've seen Coraline and other movies like this, but for whatever reason, to me, Nightmare Before Christmas is the one that I continue to go back to.
I
and I
agree.
think that there is a passion.
I think the theme for me, why it works for adults specifically, is the notion of everything's so mundane that, like, can something be new? I want to do something new, which is obviously Jack's depression. And when you know, kind of go from
his midlife crisis, you mean?
Midlife crisis, but it's, you know, I mean, think of adults. I mean, just you know, as it's ironically, if you're a college student transitioning to life, you know, you've never had a day-to-day where you have to do now laundry, you have to go shopping every week. Like, that becomes, and it becomes mundane, these tasks, and most people can't handle it. So they're like, oh my God, I need to do something new.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it resonates with adults.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great theme. You know, it's when we talk about the genesis of the story, you know, we have to give credit. You know, Tim Burton came up with the story, and you know, it's Tim Burton's world. This gentleman, Michael McDowell, did what is on IMDb, he's credited as adaptations. So, and this is a guy that's worked with Burton before. He did like Beetlejuice, but he did a lot of anthology TV, like Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, and even Alfred Hitchcock Presents. But then this Caroline Thompson came in, and she actually wrote the screenplay. And again, this is why I say it's more of a Tim Burton, because this is a woman who wrote Edward Scissorhands, The Corpse Bride. She did one of your favorites, The Addams Family. You know, so she has that Burton-esque dark feel, you know, dark yet fun at the same time.
I mean, Burton kind of keeps his team close. That's why he can carry this kind of theme and look through all. It's like his own world, because he keeps these people so intrigued, as well as, oh my goodness, I'm going to blank on the name. Who did the music?
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman worked with him before. Yeah. And it's just like this understanding, and to me, it's why you can kind of see similarities, especially between like his musicals even.
Sure. Yeah. And Henry Selick and Tim Burton, actually. Henry, again, in the making of, you see the two of them together, and Tim Burton says of Henry Selick, he goes, he was like the brother I never had. He goes, he was perfect for this job. He thought exactly the way that I did. And, you know, thematically, you're right, Phil. I mean, there are times in which, you know, even people will tell you, hey, you're doing a good job. And I always love, this was our best Halloween ever. And he's like, yeah, it was great. Then he walks away, whatever. and, you know, he's just wanting to do something else. So that's one theme. I think another theme is the romance, you know, the Sally theme as well. Definitely Bride of Frankenstein. Obviously, there's the homage there, because she was created by Dr. Finkelstein, who wants to own her in a sense as property because he feels he created her, and she wants more out of life other than being in that castle, and she strives and she does whatever she can. And so that's another great theme. And then the romance that pops up.
Distress,
absolutely.
And how we transform Jack kind of into like this tragic hero that goes through his own journey, has to defeat people. And
it's got two, I think, very popular holidays attached to it. You have Halloween Town, which a lot of kids love Halloween, and then of course you got Christmas. And the stark contrast to each of the worlds too is fantastic. The music even changes. Like when you go from this is Halloween to what's this? You know, it's what's this is so whimsical and
light.
Yeah, and Jack Skellington, like seeing it's going into a whole new world for Jack that he never knew existed. I think the other thing too is it sets up a legend that we really haven't. It sets up a legend or a folklore or myth even about holidays that has never really been explored. I mean, it's basically you can get into any holiday by going to these trees in the woods.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that was original and unique, and it gives it a fresh approach to the holiday special. So you know, it's got a ton of things.
One of the things that I really love is how the characters are so distinct and how they each really gave them their own way of movement. And that's always something that I carry out of this movie. It's just how graceful Jack is from scene to scene, this lengthy, and how they move him versus Sally with her kind of like awkward ragdoll. She's kiltered over at certain points. Just like how detail oriented they were with all of their expressions, all of the actual making of the puppets, just the way that they moved them and gave them life, I thought was just done excellently. That's a lot of magic in there.
Yeah, and each one was a character. Even the behemoth is his own character. He has a bunny. That's like one of my favorite parts. You know, it's a part that I've seen a bunch of times, but it still makes me laugh. The mayor is great, and of course he he's literally a two-faced politician. You know, I mean those kind of subtlety or not subtlety. Those are great, and they're fun characters. But then again, there are other great details. You know, for the longest time, like, I mean, you know, Zero's nose is a little pumpkin, and the mayor's limo or hearse or whatever. Yeah, the headlights are pumpkins as well, and all these little things to detail that they do. You know, I don't know. It makes me every time I see it, I can maybe pick something else out, and it makes watching that movie so much more fun.
No, just
Marissa, who's your favorite character?
Oh, we're going into favorite characters.
Well, favorite character. Well, obviously Jack Skellington is admirable. Zero, the fun dog. I liked the Oogie Boogie Man. I mean, he was crazy and diabolical, but yet he was still fun to watch, and his song was like all over the place. And I don't know, he was just big, outgoing kind of character that it was just fun to watch.
All right,
Phil.
My favorite character. I like the kids.
Rock, Shock, and Barrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're fun. Well, Jack said take him to a happy place or whatever it is. What's happier than there? So
You would identify with them. With the kids? With the kids who accidentally like torture Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would, Phil.
And again, each one has their own character. Each one is their own persona. Like, I love Beryl. You know, he takes off his mask and his face is exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, and they were voiced by great people. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, in movies, typically, kind of all the supporting roles, sometimes they just become cliches and things like that. They're not, the characterizations aren't there, and you don't really know them. But again, the fact that we can talk about each one specifically and know what they are,
absolutely. Yeah, and plus they had a walking bathtub. I mean, when you talk about creativity, you know, they had a walking bathtub. That I don't know, it was just awesome.
I feel like Dr. Finkelstein takes out half of his brain to make his ideal woman. And I'm like, yes,
Dr. Finkelstein.
That could work, I guess.
Yeah. And voiced by William Hickey, the great William Hickey character actor, who is also known, I guess, to be a very great teacher of acting. But you know, he was in two. Here's another trivia. He was in two holiday, well, at least two that I know of. He may be in more, but he also played the patriarch in Christmas Vacation. He's the old guy. You know.
There you go.
So, but he's great, and you know, his voice is great, and that's another thing too, that they were able to cast great voices for this movie. Each one is distinct. It's different, even to Oogie Boogie. You know, his voice, you know, and Santa Claus, and, you know, in each one had their own sort of kind of theme. You know, that's another thing. In a musical, because we talk about this as a musical, number one, we can break it down as a musical. It has an overture. which is at the beginning of the movie.
It's a musical because it has music every two minutes, pretty much. Most like even Grease or whatever, right? Has music probably every 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. And it's choreographed, but it has a tone that is throughout from beginning to end that you can pick up on, and it's written as a classic type of a musical in that sense, and each theme, like from Oogie Boogie's theme, which is a little bit, his is a little bit jazzy, and he's got the deep voice too.
Kind of got like a Mardi Gras thing in there.
To Sally's theme, to Jack's theme when he's going in, and and their transitions, from song to song, it works. Absolutely. Like you don't even, the things are seamless. It's very well done. Yeah. And I mean, I think that just goes. And did you guys? How he created his songs was supposedly Tim Burton hadn't even given him a script. He just would describe what was going on in the scenes and then hand it off to him, and then he would create these wonderful things just week after week, basically. Like finish one, Tim Burton come back, describe a little more, finish another one. And I think the recognition he also got is, do you guys know the little man in I want to say it's at the big upright bass? Yeah. There's a little man in there with its red head, and that's supposed to be molded off of him. Of Danny Elfman, and that's very funny. And again, when you look at the way that this movie was done too, was a little bit, it's very unorthodox. Because when you're going to lay score or music, you usually film it, or, if you have a musical, you usually have your music numbers done first, but there's usually a script somewhere. This one, they had really no script. It was Tim Burton's idea, and it was exactly how you said. It would get over, and Danny Elfman, it was oh really, that's a great idea, all right, I got something. He'd leave, he'd write it out, Tim Burton would come back again, all right, that's great. They tweak it, he'd say, I thought of this other scene, and it would be awesome. And so they did the music first, and they actually filmed the music scenes first because they were going to be the most elaborate. And again, from that type of a process, again, whenever you hear of, I'm going into a movie, but they don't have a script yet, you're like, okay, this is going to turn out great. But, they made a little piece of magic over here. So I think it's just fascinating. Again, it just goes against. You don't have to be completely planned on every aspect to make a great film until they came down to planning individual scenes in which they were literally so specific, whereas they would storyboard almost every second. I think that's what I wanted to say. That I want to say almost every frame. Yeah. What were there? 24 animations per 1 second. Yeah. Well, it was filmed. It was filmed at 24 frames per second, meaning that there were 24 articulations that they had to shoot for a second of film. And which almost all of that was planned out. Their storyboards were so elaborate, and not just sketches, but full, basically drawings of what they wanted. So there was a lot of time in there. Yeah, and to your point earlier on, who has the patience? I mean, really, that was 3 years to get this 75-minute movie accomplished. 3 years. That's a lot of patience. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. It was hard. Just as a test, if you've never done this, just take some clay and try to do even just 1 second that looks smooth. You know what I mean? Of like, okay, that, just a man picking up a cup. Just go do that. Yep. Whatever it is. It takes a long time. Hard. And that's why, like, too, which I love about it is because at the time, too, it gave me a new appreciation of watching the original Fay Ray King Kong, and, knowing Ray Harryhausen had worked on that. When you see the special effects in that, and King Kong, like even, climbing the Empire State Building and fending off the biplanes, that's an amazing feat. And, right here we have like a 75-minute animated movie, which again, when we've talked about how making a movie is a very collaborative process. And in this one, this was 3 years of work. And this wasn't just like pre-production, production, post-production. This is 3 years. But it's also, of doing this every day, moving little puppets. Today you can kind of what they call previs, right? You put it in the computer, you can, so I talked about my man moving his cup. Now, right, as you guys talked about, within each frame, there's so much going on. Right.
So now, okay, how do you coordinate that? And as you guys said, they got to storyboard it out. Storyboards are great, don't get me wrong, but it's way easier with pre-visualization. You put it in a computer, you figure it out, it's easy. And also today, with still cameras and things like that, you can take easily reference. They're doing this on film.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can just look at it right after and be like, okay, that's what we had.
Well, it's funny, too, that you say that, because I guess until you just said pre-viz, I never really thought of it. But for Jack, they had about 180 heads.
Oh, I think it was more than that. I think it was like 400.
Oh, I didn't think it was 400. I thought they had about 180 of his heads with articulations. I thought that they were using, or maybe it was just for the music, because for the music, what one of the animators did is he scanned each of the heads of Jack Skellington, and he on his computer, he scanned them on the computer, and what he would do, and there was a what would you call it? There was a straight on look at Jack, and then there was a profile of Jack. And he would mouth the words to the lyric, he would mouth the lyrics of the songs, and it would find the head, and he'd plunk that in there and plunk that in, and then he would have the heads needed for them to film. So in a sense, it was a very early concept of pre-viz, and they had a computer too, because all the cameras too were done by computer, and they had something that would control the camera right down. It was like per frame, so they knew that this shot right here is going to be 100 frames, and they can program the computer to track, to boom, to pan.
It had multiple arms about how it could swing and how it could go up and down, how it could tilt, and that was on the arm of the camera itself and on the camera. So it was like double rotation capabilities.
Yeah, and again, Phil, you got to get the Blu-ray. No, because because another part of the making of was because it's so painstaking to film a scene, and because you had to do it shot by shot by click, click, click. One of the animators said, if you're doing a traditional hand-drawn animation, if there's something in a frame that you didn't like, you can go back to that frame and maybe erase something or fix it up, and it doesn't affect anything. It was over here. If you were working 10 hours on a scene that lasts seconds, and somebody accidentally bumped the table or the lights flickered, you're done. You couldn't go back. You had to start from scratch. And that guy was like, he goes, yeah, those days were frustrating.
I'm sure when you spend a week on a minute of film, and you have to go back and do the whole thing. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But it's amazing, and this is a wonderful collaborative. All these people had this one same goal, and they and Tim Burton, knowing what he was doing too, they hired, because at the time puppeteering and this kind of animation wasn't so sought after, so he literally was able to get the cream of the crop of these people to do this and put them all together. So again, I say, Tim Burton was able to hoard a lot of this in. Henry Selick was the captain of the ship in a sense. He knew the shots he wanted, and it shows. And
on top of that, they did have a very good, fun, just story in general. They had good characters. They had a good, fun story that had twists, that had turns. I only found one big plot hole, and that's
okay. Let's compare, because I had one too.
This is my one plot, and
I just noticed
it. And being that in most films, I'm like, there's a plot hole, there's a plot hole. That only found one.
Like Thor.
There was 12 plot holes.
And you counted them down.
I'm sorry, but my big plot hole for this is that Christmas comes after Halloween. And we know that a whole year's passed since the first initial Halloween, on the first
So they skipped Halloween?
What happened during Halloween?
Yeah.
Exactly. No one notices, what happened in the real world on Halloween that they skipped while they were preparing for Christmas.
Wait, so...
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Because it involves math.
They had 364 days till the next Halloween.
Right. 300, okay. Right.
However, as soon as Jack came in, his whole thing was, okay, we got to focus on Christmas.
Right.
And therefore, they disregarded Halloween that year.
See, I didn't even take it that way.
See,
I took it as...
That's the question. Did they just try and do it within,
Yeah, I think they tried to do it
I think that's what it was.
30 days, yeah. Because even at the end of the movie...
So the next Halloween hasn't happened yet.
The next Halloween hasn't happened yet. And Santa Claus is able to save Christmas. But even at the end of Nightmare... Jack has a line in which he says, you know, when he's reborn, and he's like, hey, this is, you know what, this is my thing, and I'm great at it, and
he is the pumpkin king.
And next year's Halloween is going to be the greatest thing. I've already got these great ideas. So I think it happened within the time frame of Halloween.
So we didn't even go through the whole year. We just got that little
we didn't get to 1994 yet. We're
just checking.
You know, and to that point about Jack, I think what I like, you know, what we got. We got some studio audience out there that's kind of loud, but we'll go with it.
It's leaf blowing. What are they doing?
I don't know.
Plumbing.
Having fun listening to us.
Oh, I hope so.
What I like about it was the fact that you know, he's trying to do. It's almost like Tim Burton inserting himself into Jack Sparrow, where he's
Jack Sparrow.
Not Jack Sparrow.
Jack Skellington.
Good catch.
The studio audience is way too loud in the booth. I can't even think. No, Jack is Jack is so inspired and things like that, and he has this great idea, but he can't clearly communicate, just like I can right now, his vision.
Yeah.
Right. Of, okay, you know, I've seen this great thing. Here's what we're doing. Well, what is it? Oh, what does it do? Is it a sock? What comes out of it? Yeah.
No, it's not the point.
No, yeah, it's not. And so I love that aspect of it, because, you know, for me, I relate to that when you're an artist and when you're trying to communicate and you just can't. You're like, can't you understand what I'm saying?
And he has to revert to, he goes, okay, I'll give them what they want.
Exactly.
And, you know.
Well, it's just that tendency that despite this desire to have something new, there is something essential in their nature that makes them great at Halloween. Right. And you even see that not only when Jack's kind of talking to Halloween Town and trying to get them on board with like gifts and lights and all of that, but even when Jack himself goes into Christmas Town and he's so happy and so in awe and thinks he's fitting in, but he's kind of destroying everything as he goes. Or how he's next to the little elves in bed, like thinking they're so sweet and he's so happy, and the kid wakes up like out of a nightmare. It just shows that the nature of the citizens of Halloween Town, like, it's just for them to be scary. Like, that's just what they should be doing, because that's who they are.
Yeah, and even you know, Jack's idea of giving is very Christmassy, but what he's giving is still very Halloween. I mean, he's giving like flying bats and snakes that will eat trees.
He tries to make them alive, at least.
Right. But, you know, one of my favorite images from the movie is when the little kid gets the box, and he opens up the box, and then the parents come out, and they're like, honey, what'd you get? And then he just has this look at his face as he pulls out the head, and he's like, and everybody screams. Oh, but going back to plot holes, here was my one plot hole, unless we can figure this one out. So at the very beginning of the movie, it establishes that the worlds are in these trees. We have Easter, whatnot.
Yep,
okay,
I know what I'm talking about.
Towards the end of the movie, when Jack has his epiphany, and he's on the tombstone with the angel, the vault, he's able to go through the vault back into Halloween Town. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. How did that happen? How did he know that was an express shuttle to Halloween Town from the mausoleum or whatever that was that he was on? Like, that was my one thing that just wasn't explained.
So this is how I've interpreted this, because I've thought of this before. I was also like, if there's a door to Halloween Town through a tree, then how is he walking in the forest and all of a sudden comes to all of them? Like, wouldn't he have to go out of a door or something? But this is the way I thought of it. Is that the reason the trees are a surprise, or this, like, you know, train station almost meeting point, is because the skeletons and the boogeyman, all of them have to use these other forms to get into the real world, which is through, like, graveyards and places under the bed and all of that. But that's why Jack didn't know about the portals to the other lands, but he knew about the portals to the real world, because that's how they interfere through Halloween.
Fair enough.
That's how
I'll buy that.
I thought it.
That's as good as an excuse as I think I might be able to get. But, you know, the other cool thing is when we're talking about themes, here are these holiday trees that you can walk into, and it is a very big surprise to Jack that these are there. And again, it's because I think he's never left home. and his home is Halloween Town. So coming across this adventure, he ventures off into the woods farther than, anybody else had. I mean, he was missing for at least a day.
It was he walked all through the night.
Yeah, he
the
walked.
morning.
So,
And
I
half
think
the day.
Yeah, and I think even like Christmas Town, like if Santa, like I think that these holidays, the reason why they never intersected in a sense is because nobody ventured
far
out
enough.
from their home, from their land, which was Christmas Town or whatever.
Thanksgiving Town.
Thanksgiving Town, which had the. But what was there was something weird on with the Shamrock, which I'm assuming might be St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
But what was at the bottom of St.
Mushrooms?
Patrick's Day? Yeah, the
Was
mushroom.
that the mushrooms?
Yeah, I'm like, what's up with why wouldn't it be a Guinness? I mean, I don't know. I was just wondering.
Children's movie.
But there wasn't even a
Ish.
potato or cabbage or corned beef. It was something I was like, what's that have to do with St. Patrick's Day?
The mushrooms. It's all
The
about
theories
the
we
mushrooms.
can go into about mushrooms. I'll leave it at that.
But I do like
speaking-
how they explored the door, right? Because that's how we open the movie. Literally, there's a camera and move into all the trees that are there, and then I liked how they kept that theme going throughout the movie.
Speaking of those doors, though, I think that a lot of people or a lot of fans have looked at those doors as opportunities for more films or more ventures in this world or in this like vein of animation creation, and they never made them.
No.
Although there's been talks. They obviously revisited the character of Jack and different things like video games and such. They've never really opened this world to full movies or anything.
Sure.
And Tim Burton said that was because he wanted some things deserve just to be like their individual, like unique selves. And I personally really like that. I think that they left this movie alone. They left it with its world and didn't go have Jack have all his other adventures in all of the other towns.
He doesn't need to have adventures in the other towns. I think they could make Turkey Town, you know what I mean, be a separate thing and just be part of this world, and
Phil, this is you giving in to the need for sequels.
I'm not
Some
giving it to
things-
No, there's some there's sequels that are unwarranted, where it's like, okay, the sequel is just to get to the third movie or whatever. But if you just do it as a standalone piece and just write whatever Easter Town as a separate entity and put in the love that you put into this movie, it could work, and I'm fine with that.
Would Jack have to be in it?
No,
Not at all.
not at all.
Not even a cameo. He has cameos in other films.
He could have fine. Have him have a cameo.
His head is in an egg in Coraline.
It is in James the Giant Peach as Jack the Pirate. But, I mean, to your point, yeah, I can see that. I mean, as a direct sequel, look, Tim Burton got his inspiration from things that I think we grew up, I know I most certainly did, watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Things like that. Those were stop animation. The Rankin Bass movies to this day, and I have them all on DVD and whatnot. They're great, and you can tell that they were an inspiration, And I think, to your point, making another Nightmare Before Christmas movie. Let's face it. Once we got to Rudolph's Shiny New Year, not so much. It wasn't really that good. It wasn't as good as Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and I think that Nightmare Before Christmas doesn't. Look, it stands as a very good holiday movie. Whether you're watching it at Halloween or Christmas, it is a very good Halloween movie. It stands alone. It doesn't need the fanfare. But if you wanted to make an Easter Town, I guess, in that vein and just pick up the world, create that world and not make it a sequel.
I would do it like the Coronado trilogy, which we all know and love.
Yeah,
Yeah, where it's just... Yeah.
I just also don't know if I can see it because I feel like the Halloween aspect and like the colors and the texture of it fits Tim Burton's mood and it so well that I feel like if you tried to do an Easter Town, the brightness of it or the happiness of it just would.
I think that's Tim Burton's, I think he could, if he were to envision this and go through with it, I mean, him making an Easter Town, I think his view on, look at the bunny that they took from Easter Town.
Yeah,
that thing was, look
at Alice in Wonderland. That was a very colorful, bright movie.
Burton,
That was
but
still
Alice in
gothic.
Wonderland's it's very gothic. It's very dark. I'm not sure if you should do that to an Easter Town.
I don't know. I think it could be fun. And the same thing with Thanksgiving Town, I think could be fun. I still want to know what he would do with St. Patrick's Day Town.
Let's talk about the song specifically. Let's go song by song.
Through the songs.
Through the songs, beginning to end.
Let me pull up the songs then.
And as you're pulling up the songs, let's talk soundtrack for a second. Okay, so we talked about the opening of the movie, which starts off with like a little over voice during the overture.
The overture. There we
Okay. Now, in the original, it was, I have to make a Star Trek reference, it was Patrick Stewart who did that over voice, but it never made it into the movie. However, if you have the soundtrack, his original over voice is in the soundtrack.
I really want to know. I couldn't figure out why he was kind of axed at the last minute. Did you find out?
You know what? No.
I couldn't find it anywhere.
But he's on these.
If you guys know out there why he was no longer in the film, I would like to know.
Yeah, and he definitely lends a gravitas.
information.
But he's in the soundtracks, all versions of the soundtracks.
I would say that, I mean, I think there's a couple songs that really stick out in this film. So I have the whole list here. I think that This Is Halloween. Always.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the major ones. What's This? Kidnap the Santa Claus.
Yeah.
These always stick out in my head. And Oogie Boogies. And probably, I would say those are the main ones. The other ones, like Sally's Song and Jack's Lament, all of those, I can't always hear them as clearly, like when I'm envisioning in my head. More of the creepy songs and the dark, fast pace is really what sticks out to me in this movie and jumps out at you. The romance ones,
Well, because
didn't
they're
miss the
solos
mark,
for more or
but-
less. You know, whereas I think you like the big spectacle
Well,
of it.
Oogie Boogies is a solo.
Yeah, but it's a spectacle.
It's a spectacle, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, for me, and I can sort of kind of equate the songs to like favorite scenes as well. I mean, I do. I love the overture and I love This Is Halloween. But I also love how This Is Halloween goes into Jack's Lament. And the reason why I really love Jack's Lament is not just because of the song. It's a slower song, but it's just beautifully shot, and the way with the way Jack is walking out in the forest, the moon, but even up to the point where he comes up to Zero's tombstone and just pats his thing, and Zero comes out and he throws him the bone. Just the way that he does that, his bone, yeah. And
always good.
I love the way that scene plays out with him singing, and even when he throws a quarter to the guys, you know, what's the line, like
Thanks,
bone daddy. You know, stuff like that.
No, there's definitely details. That's
and I think
talk
that
about.
To me enhances even the music to a lot of Oogie Boogies. Like you say, it's a spectacle. What makes it so good is when you're pairing it up to the action that's taking place on screen. You know, it really lends to, I guess you can say, suspense, or it lends to the, you know, this is a badass character, this Oogie Boogie. And when Jack comes back again, the way it's choreographed with Jack on the rifles and the way he's
such
walking,
a spider, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great,
beautifully done.
Yeah. So how about you?
What's my favorite song?
Yeah.
I do like I like What's This? Because it is so whimsical. I was gonna say Oogie Boogie, but I like you know, and it's just that whole discovery, and as we talked about, that he feels like you can't really know a world just by entering into it.
Right.
And like, oh yeah, I completely understand now everything. No, you don't.
No, but you know, and again, when you look at What's This, I mean, one of my favorite like scenes, and it happens for like a second, is when he talks about the lights and his eyes, the Christmas balls like go into his eye sockets like that. And it matches with the lyrics, and you know, and then the train with the cotton puffs of smoke, and it's you know, it's all to the beat of the music. It's very well and beautifully choreographed to incorporate sounds with the music that was written
and the action.
Yeah, and in the action, and Danny Elfman's voice. You know, I sort of feel bad for Chris Sarandon. You know, because
he couldn't sing.
Well, no, I get that, but you know, when you, as we were talking, there's like a song every 2 minutes, and Jack's one of those main songs, so you get very little of Chris Sarandon, and you know, you're
talking about the actor who actually
voiced him, yeah,
versus Danny who actually sang him.
He was the singing voice, so you know, Chris Sarandon gets very little voice time, it seems. So
that is true. It would be funny to look at the exact minutes or how many lines Jack has talking versus
Right.
singing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
That would be funny.
Definitely.
Sarah, what about you?
My absolute favorite? Oh, that's so hard. I would say probably What's This is up there.
You
It's
said
very
Making
funny because
Christmas.
when I think of Sally's song,
I
her
think you
song
could relate
always-
Sally more.
Listen, though.
It seems like you're not really
Sally's-
relating to
okay,
Sally, though.
Well, that's the thing. When I think
What
about
do you
Sally's song and the song from Hocus Pocus
Mm-hmm.
that
boy.
Sarah Jessica Parker sings, they like mold into one in my head. I don't know why. I can't explain it at
Your
all.
two favorite childhood movies, that's why.
They just like start like meshing.
Well, they came out in the
So-
same year.
Maybe that's part of
And-
it. Maybe it is because I do watch them both like every holiday season, so then they end up melting together. So favorite song? I would probably say What's This?
What's this?
I would.
And
Plus, it's really fun to like throw out in like just everyday life.
What's
it's so
this?
easy
What's
to
this?
use. Just like, what's this? Like,
fair,
I just
that's
like
true.
that.
That is true.
I just like that I can reference it a lot.
That is true. Marissa, what about you?
Well, I don't want to sound like a conformist, but I do like.
Such a conformist.
I know. I do like What's This because
Conformity.
it's
Yeah, all on my
it's a really fun song because it's from Jack's perspective. He's literally a kid in Christmas land. He doesn't know anything that's going on. His naivety throughout the song is really fun, and you see his perspective of how he's envisioning Christmas for the very first time, and it changes his whole personality because at the beginning of the movie he's all sad and morose and kind of in a depressive state, but then once he gets to Christmas he's really cheery and merry, and
He's been
it changes
awakened.
his character.
What I also like, you know, we talked about him kind of, now he forms this plan, he's trying to explain it, and the miscommunication there. But by him not being, I don't think it's not because he's not a strong leader, but because of how much he doesn't understand the world and his eagerness to get to fix Christmas and all that. He lets a lot of compromises happen. It's like, okay, well, you know, okay, so you guys don't understand this. Just build me a box, you know, or build me this, and we'll go with it.
Attempt. We'll try and fix it.
Yeah. So it's just a nice lesson. And if you want to do something and you're really passionate, you got to first kind of really understand it and things like that.
Right.
You know, which I think ultimately by the end, even though he learned more about himself in Halloween and what the real beauty there was and why he was doing the things that he was doing, why he was actually so good at it versus Christmas, which I think is a good lesson to everybody.
I agree.
I think one of my favorite choices that the film makes, besides all the like how it's beautifully done, and we've been over that, is just how they did develop a plot and add in different characters to. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think the addition of the boogeyman from the original poem was like key to this film.
You needed
to making a good story and making the
You
person
need a turn.
and making not the skeleton into the bad guy or make him need to be evil or something, but putting someone who is more of real evil in Halloween Town, so that scaring it came out of like kind of a happy place rather than a
Also,
destructive
but
place.
think of what Oogie Boogie lends to the movie, what that character lends. First off, Jack just pretty much screwed up Christmas for everybody. Okay. And, you know, you could look at Jack from that perspective. Even though he has his epiphany, Christmas is still messed up. Okay. So, you know, you go, geez, Jack, what the hell did you do? I mean, people tried to tell you, or Sally tried to tell you, this isn't a good idea. You went ahead everywhere. You screwed it up. You shot out of the sky by putting a villain in the movie for Jack to square off at, and you're able to put Sandy Claus and Sally into peril. He redeems himself a little bit above and beyond just having the epiphany of, ooh, this isn't a good idea. I should just, you know, instead of him going, oops, sorry, it wasn't
a
me.
task, and you made someone worse.
And
than
you
him.
made him a hero. You know, so he not only comes out with the self-realization, he comes away by saving the girl. And because of his actions, Santa Claus, are you kidding? I'm Santa Claus. Of course I can save Christmas. And he goes off.
And then I do love at the very end that they added in that little tie-in of leaving the snow in Halloween Town, and everyone does kind of get it or understand a little bit more, and they get that realization as well and that joy as well. always just a good final touch because they could have easily left that out.
They could have.
And it could have just been Halloween Town and them all were happy being in Halloween again. But giving them that joy, I thought was always a good touch.
Yeah, but they didn't have to shovel. So, you know, speaking of what's this, Danny Elfman, here's something that I gathered. Danny Elfman drew the tongue-twisting inspiration for What's This from Gilbert and Sullivan's I Am the Very Model of a Modern Major General from the Pirates of Penzance. Going back to, of course, this is a very rooted in very classical musicals that we've known. So there you go.
There we go. Maybe that's why I like it, because it's pulled from the classics.
Let's talk about Sally. We haven't really talked about Sally. I want to get Sarah to a place where she respects Sally.
Oh my gosh, I totally respect Sally. I mean, Sally has good head on her shoulders. She's fighting for her freedom from her, like, you know, dad person. I don't know what to call him. Dad, inventor, owner, something. She's tricky. She can make some really good soup.
There you go.
She has 9 lives. She can jump out of windows and still survive.
She can, exactly. She can just like disassemble her whole body. She tries to save the day. She tries to be good advice.
Task accomplished.
See?
Yeah, Sally's a great character because of her attitude. She does want to be, you know, in a sense like Jack. She wants to be something better. She doesn't want to live a life of indentured servitude to the person who created her or her father figure. You know, she is able to do things. You know, when she flops herself out the window, it's great. And all she does is like she takes a little needle and thread, you know, needle from her, you know, from hiding in her hair, and she's able to sew herself back together. And you know, but then again, deeply too, you know, she has this affection for Jack. And there's another great scene where after she flops out the window, she goes to Jack's house, Jack's castle, and she sends up her care package to Jack. And Jack looks out the window and she's there, and he pulls it in, and it cuts to him pulling her in the care package. When he looks back out, like, then we see Sally running, and she's hiding because she's nervous. And to me, it's a great little... It makes a human. It makes this creature, this, you know, but it gives her this humanistic girl quality.
Sweet.
She's very sweet.
She's not like the vixen or the temptress. She is a very sweet, well-natured, strong head on her shoulders character.
Yeah, and she has premonitions. We got to throw that
in there. She's got some special capabilities.
Special capabilities. To see
all about the dandelions or whatever.
Yeah, this is not going to work, Jack.
I know. I saw it.
So, but yeah, no, and then, and again, when you have a person like Sally, because she knows that things are going to go wrong, she's initially who goes to help Santa, or Sandy Claus. That's funny. You don't have claws at all. I love that line. But, yeah, I mean, so she is she's a great character. She's a good female character in this world. You know, who, you know, she gets her freedom. She gets her man at the end. You know, and all can live happily. Yeah, success. How about you?
Now she's the queen of Halloween Town.
Absolutely.
Although she's not very scary.
So we got mayors, queens, and kings.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know,
and doctors.
And doctors.
There we go.
No, I just wanted to spend a little bit more time because obviously, although it is Jack's story, you know, and she is a little bit of a damsel in distress at the end, she's still, unlike most movies, she is a strong female character that, you know, I call it kind of a kid's movie, you know, because obviously kids see and things like that. So it's not bad for girls to see someone like that.
Is that what you wanted me to say? Is that what you were trying to get out of me? Is that she was my strong female character as a child?
That's it.
I was, well, I mean, this is a Disney movie, and I was all about Disney and for Disney women. She does do pretty well.
And the goth women love her.
Yeah.
You know, the goth women love her. I worked, again, when I worked at Suncoast, Motion Picture, which is a defunct video store. We're going back to video again. And again, this was, I think, one of the strengths of this movie. Whenever we would get anything in, whether it be, we would always get like action figures and stuff like that. And Nightmare Before Christmas was one of the big sellers. People would come in the day the stuff was released. And they used to do elaborate things. Like they had they had that well in which Jack comes out of during this is Halloween and stuff, and it lit up and everything, and some of them became highly collectible. And there was this girl that worked with me at Suncoast, and she was sort of gothy. She was really cute, but she loved Sally. Loved Sally, and anything that came in Sally she would get. And this is like there were no amusement parks. There was like you basically,
although there was an idea for an amusement park.
Yes,
or a ride.
And now they have it every Christmas time at Disneyland. They do that great overlay.
Yeah, but there was supposed to be a complete only Nightmare Before Christmas ride that was year round, and Tim Burton ex-nated the idea, and then eventually he gave into the overlay that we do see.
Well, I'm sure there were a few zeros added to that check for that overlay. But hey, I go every year to that. Have you ever done that? You've never done?
I don't do fun stuff.
You know,
I have been Dimitri, and I like it.
How about you, Marissa?
I have not.
You've not done it? Oh my God! Well,
She doesn't do fun things either.
She doesn't do fun things either. It's like, well, hey, I have a season pass to Disney, and they've been doing this for 13 years. You've been in the Haunted Mansion before?
I don't do fun things.
Oh my goodness!
Holy cow! Well, there's this.
I don't know what to say to you, Phil. Phil, have you been to Disneyland?
Neither have I.
I don't do fun things,
Oh
but
my
I'm glad
gosh.
that we've gotten you to a place where you can respect and love Sally. And
Yeah.
admit she's your childhood idol.
I did not admit she's my childhood idol. She's not my personal childhood idol.
Well, if Nightmare Before Christmas can at least inspire you to walk through the doors, because what they do a fantastic job. And one of the things that I love most about it, there's a part in the Haunted Mansion ride in which you go past a ballroom, and there's like some holographic magic going on with people dancing, eating, and whatnot. Well, the changeover for Nightmare Before Christmas is there's this big long table, and the centerpiece of the table is a gingerbread house. And every year for 13 years, they've made a brand new gingerbread house. And it's different every year. It's made with the Disney bakers come in. It's made out of real gingerbread. You can smell the gingerbread as you're going by. Man, I can't believe. I mean, you don't do fun things. Wow.
I don't do fun things.
I know this movie was a lot of inspiration for my middle school wardrobe. Especially because I had some.
See? I knew it!
At a certain point, I think it must have been 7th or 8th grade, where I really liked Hot Topic, and Hot Topic went through a very big Nightmare Before Christmas thing. And I remember I had like my skater shoes, and I had my shoelaces. Why is this so funny to Phil? Phil? I've been through a lot of phases in my life. Anyway, and I remember I had a group of friends, and they were actually all girls, or 4 girls at this point, and they all dressed up for Halloween as each of the characters. And like, this was like, we had shoelaces, they had clothing, there was jewelry, there was a blanket, like Jack Skellington blankets. This was a very extensive product,
and they still do. And even at Disney, they have a lot of stuff now. It's funny because I just found
that everyone had. The sweatshirt was huge.
Yeah, and
the big jacket, black.
And speaking of Sally, Henry Selick had this to say about Sally. This is sort of funny. Sally's a very original character Tim dreamed up. We all wondered if it was his ideal woman. Dead, beautiful, voluptuous, lots of stitches. That's sort of funny. So, and that comes from the commentary, that if you had the Blu-ray, you'd get that.
That's interesting. I want to say that his favorite male character was always Edward Scissorhands. I don't know why I'm thinking of that. I maybe it was in an interview somewhere. But they would be an interesting couple.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, she could always just sew herself right up. All good. No problems.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the merchandise and again, it's one of those movies that when it first came out, again, $50 million, it was number 27 that year, which was way ahead of Hocus Pocus, I may add. But it was number 27. It didn't set any box office records. But when you look at what it's done and the cult following that grew and grew and grew, especially with the advent of home video back then, and people, again, it's one of those movies that people caught on to, and then the merchandising went through the roof. Like I said, at Suncoast, anything that we came out with,
and it's
there were people who would go there. And going back to Disneyland again, they had a store that was pretty much dedicated to Haunted Mansion. But because Nightmare Before Christmas is so popular, it's primarily it's a majority of Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise, and they have the jewelry and the shirts and mugs. I have I almost brought it with me today. I have a Jack Skellington tea light holder that
Well,
great
just
stuff.
the fact that like his skull, which is so different than the original
Right.
image of a skull, that has been representative on all sorts of brands, from like skating to motorcycle to goth, all over, as a new version.
Yeah.
Says something.
Yeah, and it, hey, testament right here. One thing that they did, thank God I had a pass. Oh man, it was crazy. They did the 13 Faces of Jack, and at the New Orleans Cafe for 13 weeks, 13 consecutive weeks. If you ate at the New Orleans Cafe, spent a certain amount of money, you would get a coin, and it had a face of
Dimitri,
Jack.
how many coins do you have?
13. I went 13 straight weeks, and damn it, there was no way I was not going to. And they sold out. Like they sold out. So you had to go when that thing was released, because if you waited to midweek or end of the week, you would toast.
Dimitri there every Monday.
Oh,
Every
and that was
Monday.
it. Yeah, and you just they're like, once you 13 weeks, you have everything on the menu, and you're like, oh, okay, this better be worth it. But yeah, it was.
We'll have to take a trip to Disneyland. Get Phil and
Get Phil and Marissa to go
Yeah.
have fun, crack a
Like the
smile.
thing.
You'd like the Star Tours, the Space Mountain, and the Haunted Mansion, of course.
I'm sure I would.
Alrighty.
What else do we want to talk about this movie? I mean, we've kind of circled around everything, more or less.
I'm trying to say, I think we've pretty much covered songs, characters.
Marissa, what's your
plot.
favorite moment, having not really paid attention to the movie?
Well, actually, to go back
I
to
have
real quick, that Jax had Henry Selick said in an interview that they use close to 400
See,
Okay.
different heads.
Ah,
So, but one of my
score for me.
but one of my favorite movies or moments. I don't know. There were so many great different things that, again, going from Jack's perspective, that he loves Christmastown, and it's just a whole new perspective on what it is to someone who really doesn't know. And I enjoyed that, because Christmas is something, it's an annual thing. We all know it, and we all have our traditional holidays or traditional things that we do during Christmas,
Right.
and then he changes it up, which is still always fun to watch.
Which is a nice theme of, we take it for granted. It's like sometimes it becomes, like Jack, right? It's so habitual. But now when you really examine it, like, okay, you know what? The goal is to bring people together on Christmas time and things
Right.
like that. And so, you know what? If we, rather than just going through the motions of like, oh, I got to see my uncles again or this
Right.
and that, you know what? I don't get to see them that often. Let's have fun.
Yeah, no, and
That's why I don't have fun.
you know I know what we haven't really talked about yet, and that is Halloween versus Christmas. We
is
didn't
true.
get into that yet, and before.
Can I add my fun fact then before we get into
yeah,
this
yeah,
debate?
yeah.
This is my fun fact. In the original ending, Oogie Boogie was actually supposed to be Dr. Finkelstein in disguise. Just to let you know. They X-nayed
That's
this
cool.
way before filming.
Yeah, that would have been cheesy. They'd be like, oh, come on.
Well, you know,
But
and then
crazy.
and going back to the creativity before we do our versus thing, number one, so we have Jack's head, right? Jack's head was easily removable. They couldn't do the same for Sally. Sally's was a mask because she had the red hair, so they couldn't take off the head, and so hers was like a mask that every time they had to go in and sort of kind of like pop the face off, pop another one in, make sure that it was in tight and that it wasn't like, so that to me is, again, the painstaking time involved with this. The other cool thing was the sets and how they built their sets. They made scale models and everything. And one of the things that the animators, or we can call them puppeteers, but we'll call them animators because that's what they really are, they requested that they needed at least 2 feet, which is relatively arm's length, so that they could change the design of the puppet, get out of shot, go back in again. And so they had to build everything to be about 2 feet for them to reach. And if they couldn't do that, they built a trap door. So they built a trap door in the set so that the guy's head could pop up, fix it, pop back down. And I find that, like, to me, that's really cool that they took. So they built this to scale set, and then they built another scale, a bigger scale set to film on.
I used to have the numbers for how many sets they had. I want to say it was like 230.
Yeah,
or something ridiculous amount.
It was a ridiculous amount of sets that they had to make. And, the timing to put all that together to me is just, again, you have to love what you do in order to spend 3 years with the people around you.
Have to want the product.
20 different sound stages as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And they would film, so they would have a Jack Skellington on set A, and they would be doing another Jack Skellington on B. And then to match everything up, you had to, filming the music numbers was different. And then they added traditional animation, like for when the ghosts or have the presence, and they part of that was stop motion. Then they had to animate ghosts in the scene. There's a ton of work. So
and also Oogie Boogie, when the skin comes off and then he's filled with bugs. That production of that took about 4 months. Just that quick 5 seconds took 4 months, and a lot of animators worked on that. Yeah, it was the passion and love. And now, and like we said, we go back to the legacy, and we can talk about, Phil, like you brought this up, and this is why we're doing this. This is our Christmas special.
It is our Christmas special.
It's our Christmas special, right? So, Halloween versus Christmas. I think we know your answer, but
my answer is Christmas because it makes you appreciate Christmas all the more.
Am I going to my view?
Sure.
I mean, I'm going to have to say that to me, this is just more of a holiday movie. Reminds me of the holiday season.
What is it called?
Okay, Phil,
look behind you.
I watch Hocus Pocus on Halloween. I watch other things on exactly Christmas. This is my filler holiday movie that I do watch every year.
On Thanksgiving?
No, actually, probably closest to Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, right about now, early December or sometimes in November, but it to me is more of a holiday movie. Maybe that is because through the settings, it kind of crosses through all of them. And so I don't really differentiate if it's one or the other.
Marissa?
Well, at first, I think it's really Christmas because if it was Halloween, they would have called it Nightmare Before Halloween. But overall, the movie is in a Halloween setting, but the storyline is about Christmas.
Interesting. I mean, first I'm going to take the middle of the road that I think what makes it classic is that it can work starting in October and go through the holidays. Disney has obviously capitalized on that, and so isn't Tim Burton. But for me, and it just could be for me because, look, the movie it's called A Nightmare, which you associate with Halloween. It opened in October. So Disney and it became #1 October 29th, the weekend of Halloween. We open with Halloween Town, and it's Jack Skellington. And I think, it would be interesting to see how much time they spend in Halloween Town as opposed to Christmas Town. And so, I don't know. For me, I always watch this movie during the Halloween season. It's a little bit uncharacteristic. I watched it again last night just to be prepared for it today. But I'm more of, I look at it more as Halloween because
I
of the
also
creepy
think
stuff.
Dimitri, I feel like most people have, 50 Christmas movies that they watch and 1 or 2 Halloween movies. I feel like your list of Halloween movies is quite extensive.
I have a lot of Halloween movies.
You just pile them in that category because I feel like you have such a connection to the Halloween movies.
Yeah, I mean, but I watch a lot of Christmas movies too. But Nightmare Before Christmas, I never watched at Christmas because I've already watched it at Halloween. I mean, for Christmas movies or Christmas shows, yes, we have the Rankin Bass. Come on, it's Christmas Time, Charlie Brown. It's like the best Christmas special ever. And then, then of course you've got movies like
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street.
Miracle on 34th Street's my Christmas movie.
And
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus, the original, the first one. I'll give that one. Christmas Vacation. Like, we could have done Christmas Vacation. John Hughes wrote Christmas Vacation.
That was a good one.
And it's a good one. And there's so many Christmas kind of movies that we can,
What's going to be great in 10 years, we can just re-release all these and like, hey, here's our Christmas special this year. From 2015, our Christmas Vacation Christmas special.
Yeah, and so, so again, for me, it was always geared towards Halloween, this movie. But I do love the fact that I do get to enjoy it, say, at like at Disney. It's great, too, because you can go down there in October, and yes, you get a very Halloween feel, but then you can go in the Christmas time, and you get a very Christmas feel to it. I mean, it's great. I have a Nightmare Before Christmas thing up for my Christmas decorations in my apartment right now. So, yeah, it's, I think that's part of what makes it a classic. I think it's part of what makes the legacy of this movie, which I think is going to continue. I think as kids grow up, they'll find out, they'll watch this movie, it'll become a favorite, and I think it'll continue to grow and gain audience. As
long as Netflix keeps featuring it.
Yep, it's on Netflix, guys.
And how do they feature? Like, did you find it? Was it on?
No, it's like, recommend, like, hey, Christmas movies, blah blah, or like
and it's
fun
there.
movies, kid. Yeah, it's Netflix to me just has like the same movie, just in like a different quote category. But anyway,
when did you first see it? When did you first see Nightmare Before Christmas?
7th grade.
7th grade.
7th grade.
How about you, Sarah?
When she was 7.
When she was 7.
I was pretty young. I would say I was definitely in elementary school.
Yeah. Marissa, when did you first listen to A Nightmare Before Christmas?
Well, I had actually seen this movie when I was a really little kid, because I had my older sisters. They made me watch this movie. But, being a kid, you don't really remember a lot of things.
That's true.
To be fair, Sarah and Marissa were pretty much born when this movie came out.
I was like 2.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we were like close to the same age, yes.
Oh my goodness. And on that note, thank you guys for yet another great anatomy dissection. We'll be doing a lot more coming up. I think we got American Hustle. We got The Hobbit coming up. We got
Dallas Buyers
Club, Nebraska.
Saving Mr. Banks.
Saving Mr. Banks. That's going to be a good one.
I'm upset I get to miss it.
Oh.
I'm really bummed that I get to miss it because I've seen it and I loved it. I'm not going to give anything else away, but I loved Saving Mr. Banks.
We'll, as the years continue, we'll have more Christmas movies in our library to share with you guys, but this has been our first Christmas special. Listen to it in Halloween if you want.
See, this song sounds like Hocus Pocus. Oh, darn it, went away.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
In the meantime, where can we find you, Dimitri?
Right here at Anatomy of a Movie. You can find me here. If you write a comment, I'll even write back.
And Sarah Stratton.
Same. I'm here. Yay.
Oh my goodness. Well, follow us at Movie Anatomy on Twitter. We have a Facebook. We have a website. We're on iTunes. Hey, go comment. We're on YouTube for the video side of things. Marissa, where can they find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at SeraphiniTV.
And thank you guys, as always. Missing from the panel today was John Comerford, but he'll be back for a few of the other movies. We'll have Kevin Undergaro making a few special appearances on Dallas Buyers Club. In the meantime, keep the conversation going. Let us know what you think. Let us know what your favorite Christmas movie is. And happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.